Pregnant wife visits. Doctor finds millionaire husband paying bills for FBI agent's wife. Welcome to today's captivating tale, a story brimming with secrets, twists, and breathtaking drama. Prepare yourself to journey alongside a pregnant wife, seeking comfort and care, only to stumble upon a revelation that shatters her trust and upends her entire world. Within the walls of a doctor's office, she discovers her millionaire husband's startling connection to an FBI agent's wife. The unexpected alliances, whispered betrayals, and shocking deceptions lead us down a path of heart-racing suspense, where the ultimate truth hides behind a thick curtain of intrigue. Get ready for a compelling ride and let us dive into the tangled web of this gripping tale. Before we dive in, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. If you're excited about this story, let us know. If you enjoyed the video, press 1. If not, press O. Your feedback really inspires me to gather more uplifting and meaningful stories. Clara Hastings couldn't stop tapping her foot on the polished marble floor of Mount Sinai Hospital's lobby. The crisp smell of antiseptic and the steady hum of hushed conversations among visitors did little to soothe her churning nerves. She was in her second trimester, her belly just beginning to show beneath her flowing floral dress. Normally, the knowledge that she would soon be a mother filled her heart with joy. But today, dread overshadowed her excitement. Her husband, Martin Hastings, was running late again. Lately, it seemed he was always finding excuses to miss important appointments. A text had chimed a few minutes ago, held up at a meeting. "Be there soon. Sorry." Clara clutched her purse, wishing for some sign this day would turn out normal. She tried to ignore the gnawing sense of betrayal that had been festering ever since. Martin's behavior changed weeks ago, but every passing minute in that hospital only sharpened her unease. She could not deny the undercurrent of fear. Martin was a successful entrepreneur who had built a dazzling fortune in tech investments by the age of 35. The money allowed them a life of comfort, an opulent house in a gated community, a stable of luxury cars, and staff who handled everyday tasks. Yet, behind the perfect veneer, Clara felt a chill in Martin's distant manner lately. He claimed he was burdened with work. She had accepted that explanation until her friend, Lucy, hinted that Martin was seen in strange parts of town at odd hours. Clara had tried to keep her suspicions at bay. She consoled herself that Martin was simply burying himself in new business deals to secure their child's future. But now, as she waited alone, the tiniest thread of doubt, one she'd tried to ignore, threatened to unravel everything. So many unanswered questions churned in her mind. At last, Martin strode in. He was immaculate in a tailored slate-grey suit, hair neatly combed back, still exuding the kind of confidence that had attracted Clara years ago. His deep-set, hazel eyes scanned the lobby, landing on her. He flashed that familiar, magnetic smile. For a moment, Clara's heart fluttered, recalling better days when the very sight of him would dispel every worry. "Apologies, darling," he said, kissing her cheek. "Important meeting ran long." She forced a small nod. "We should head up. Dr. Fitzgerald is waiting." Inside, Clara told herself to brush aside her nagging anxieties. She wanted to focus on the precious life growing within her. As they walked together to the elevator, Martin's hand came to rest reassuringly on her back. She turned to him, almost ready to forgive his tardiness. But a flicker of guilt in his eyes stirred a new wave of dread. They arrived at Dr. Fitzgerald's office, where cheerful pastel walls and bright nature paintings contrasted sharply with the tension clinging to Clara's mind. A nurse led them into the examination room. Despite the calm environment, Clara sensed Martin's mind was elsewhere, as though he carried a hidden burden. The gentle hum of the ultrasound machine soon filled the room. Dr. Fitzgerald guided the cool transducer across Clara's abdomen, revealing their baby's heartbeat, a steady, wondrous rhythm that was music to her ears. For a few moments, everything else dissolved. Tears pricked Clara's eyes. Even Martin seemed entranced, albeit momentarily. But just as Dr. Fitzgerald began discussing prenatal vitamins, Martin's phone buzzed. He glanced at it with urgent interest, his knuckles whitening around the device. He stood abruptly, excused himself, and hurried into the hallway. That single action popped the fragile bubble of peace in the exam room, leaving Clara's pulse racing. When Martin returned, his face was pale. "Why, I need to make a quick call," he managed, refusing to meet Clara's eyes. "I'll be right back." "Martin," Clara protested, her voice a whisper, but he had already turned on his heel. "Doctor." Fitzgerald offered a sympathetic smile, though curiosity flickered behind his professional manner. Clara could barely concentrate as he finished the routine checks. Every nerve in her body screamed to find out why Martin seemed so jumpy. Sure, the corporate world could be stressful, but he had never allowed business to intrude on such a personal moment before. Once the exam ended, Clara thanked Dr. Fitzgerald and headed toward the hallway. Through the narrow slit of the partly open door, she caught a glimpse of Martin in heated conversation. Curiosity flared. "What is he hiding from me?" she thought anxiously. And then came a name she did not expect to hear. FBI. Clara froze. The word alone was enough to spike her heartbeat. Martin's voice was low, urgent. She tried to piece together the snippets. "Yes, I paid. Cover all the expenses, FBI agent." He paused, nodded to whoever was on the line. "Absolutely. Keep this discreet. No one can know." A swirl of confusion overcame her. Why would my husband pay bills for an FBI agent? The immediate worry was that Martin was in trouble. Was he the subject of an investigation? Or was he bribing someone? Terror lanced through Clara. Her stomach lurched. Only the knowledge she was pregnant made her resist the urge to bolt. She edged away from the door as she heard Martin end the call. He emerged moments later, face drawn, offering a brittle smile. "Sorry, love. Business emergency," he murmured. But Clara could see a wildness in his eyes. Something wasn't right. Something was unraveling. They left Dr. Fitzgerald's office. A thunderstorm seemed to gather in the corridor, the tense silence amplified by the swirl of questions in Clara's mind. She wanted to confront Martin, to demand an explanation, but the moment felt too raw, too vulnerable. He guided her gently toward the elevator, pressing the button repeatedly, his leg bouncing with nervous energy. "Let's get some fresh air," he muttered. Outside, dark clouds loomed, threatening rain. For a moment, Clara thought the sky mirrored her swirling emotions. In the car, an awkward hush draped over them until Clara finally spoke. "Martin, did I hear you mention the FBI?" She forced her tone to remain calm. His gaze flicked to her. "Just a complicated business arrangement. A friend needed help covering his wife's medical bills and, well, he happens to be an FBI agent," Martin replied. But the explanation felt hollow, lacking the ring of truth. The days that followed only fanned Clara's suspicions. Martin seemed more distant, speaking in vague, clipped sentences whenever she mentioned the phone call. He spent long hours in his home office, the door locked, emerging only to eat dinner in silence. Twice, she nearly caught him in whispered phone conversations that ended the moment she entered. Desperate for answers, Clara confided in Lucy. Lucy's eyes widened when she heard the mention of FBI involvement. "You need to get to the bottom of this. There's obviously more going on," Lucy warned. Clara agreed. Still, a small part of her feared the truth. She felt her unborn child's presence with every breath, a reminder that she had to tread carefully for both their sakes. So she fought against the swirling anxiety, focusing on baby preparations and trying to keep the household running smoothly. even though her thoughts were consumed by Martin's secrets. Then came the day that shattered the illusion once and for all. Clara had a routine checkup scheduled for early afternoon. Martin promised he would meet her there. She arrived alone, nerves frayed, only to find him pacing by the nurse's station, face tight with tension. "I've taken care of everything," Martin muttered under his breath when she approached. "Taken care of what?" she asked, but he shook his head dismissively. Before she could press further, a frantic voice echoed down the hall. A woman's sobs drifted around the corner, raw and pained. Suddenly, Martin tensed. He pointedly avoided Clara's questioning stare, and half walked, half ran toward the commotion. Intrigued and suspicious, Clara followed. To her shock, she saw a distraught woman crumpled on a seat, her face buried in her hands. Martin bent over her with familiarity, whispering words of consolation. Beside them sat a man in a crisp suit, wearing an FBI badge. The man with the badge, Agent Donovan, turned to Martin in desperation. "Thank you. The bills. We couldn't have managed alone." Clara's heart pounded. He's paying this woman's hospital bills. The pieces slammed into place, so that was the FBI agent. And the woman he was comforting, his wife. Shock swelled in Clara's chest. She took a tentative step forward. Martin glanced at her with panic in his eyes, as if caught red-handed. Agent Donovan looked up, noticing her presence. With an uneasy smile, he rose, offering a handshake. "You must be Martin's wife. I'm Special Agent Sean Donovan. This is my wife, Mara." Mara, her tears subsiding, nodded weakly. "Your husband has been a tremendous help," she whispered, her voice trembling. Clara felt as if the hospital corridor was spinning. Why would Martin be paying for an FBI agent's wife? And why had he kept it from her? The seconds bled into each other in that cramped hallway. Anxiety clenched Clara's chest like a vise. Images of infidelity flickered through her mind. She questioned whether Martin was having an affair with this FBI agent's wife. But Mara's grief and Agent Donovan's gratitude suggested another reality. Martin motioned for Clara to follow him away from the Donovans. Without meeting her gaze, he murmured, "I'll explain everything later." She grabbed his arm, voice quavering. "No, Martin, explain now." His eyes darted between her and the Donovans. "Mara's medical condition is severe. Donovan is a friend from a complicated time in my life." That half answer only raised more questions. But they couldn't continue as a nurse briskly approached, preparing to lead Mara for another test. Martin used the moment to slip away, expecting Clara to drop the matter. Little did he know that she was done staying silent. Over the next few days, Clara dug for the truth. She approached Lucy, who was adept at researching backgrounds. Together, they discovered that Donovan had received praise for undercover operations in financial crimes. He was no small-town agent. He specialized in investigating corporate fraud and money laundering. Exactly the kind of thing Martin's businesses could be involved in. A nagging voice whispered in Clara's mind. Could Martin be in trouble for some illegal scheme, blackmailed into supporting Donovan's family? Lucy raised that possibility, but Clara dismissed it as too outlandish. Martin wasn't the type to embezzle funds. But then again, she hardly recognized him in recent weeks. Determined for clarity, Clara confronted Martin that evening. She followed him into his office, uninvited. He froze at his laptop, a swirl of spreadsheets and clandestine emails glaring on the screen. Sensing the moment of reckoning had arrived, he closed it with a snap. "I know about Donovan and Mara," Clara began, her voice trembling. "I saw the tension, the secrecy. Tell me what's really going on." Martin's expression flickered between guilt, worry, and desperation. Finally, he exhaled. "Donovan saved my life once," he admitted quietly. "Years ago, I got mixed up in a dangerous situation I've never told you about." Clara felt the ground shift beneath her. What kind of situation? Martin's gaze lowered. He began recounting a story from his past. Before Clara met him, Martin had partnered with a shady investor who introduced him to unscrupulous deals. When Martin realized the corruption, he tried to pull out, but a criminal organization threatened him. Desperate, Martin turned to the authorities. Donovan, working undercover, arranged a sting that dismantled the ring. In retaliation, the criminals targeted Martin. Donovan personally protected him until the arrests were made. "That's why I owe him," Martin said softly. Though the tale sounded sincere, Clara sensed there was more. "If you merely owe him for saving your life, why all this secrecy now?" Martin hesitated. Then, in a hushed voice, he revealed the real crux of the matter. Donovan's superiors suspect that some ring members escaped justice. "They think I may be a target again. Donovan approached me for financial help because his wife's illness is," Martin paused, pained. He worried the criminals might use his family's vulnerability to force him to betray me. "So I offered to pay Mara's bills, ensuring Donovan stays in a strong position." Clara's heart thundered. Dangerous criminals? Reprisal? FBI cover-ups? She realized with a start that Martin was not simply being charitable, he was trying to protect them both from lurking threats. But that revelation brought no peace. If anything, it revealed deeper layers of danger and a swirl of moral compromises that Martin was entangled in. Eventually, Donovan himself reached out to Clara. One afternoon, she got a call on her cell phone. "Miss S. Hastings, we need to talk," he said solemnly. They agreed to meet at a small cafe near the hospital, a discreet location. Clara arrived, stomach tight with nerves. Donovan was already there, sitting in a corner booth, wearing an off-duty jacket. He greeted her politely, then immediately got to the point. "I owe your husband my family's life. Mara's condition is advanced, and if we hadn't found the specialist soon, we'd likely have lost her." Martin covered the bills. Clara's shoulders sagged. So that much was true, but she needed clarity. "I'm grateful Martin helped," she said softly, "but there's a darkness hanging over all this." Donovan lowered his voice. The men Martin helped put away had powerful connections. "I'm hearing rumors they want revenge. My superiors are watching closely. We need to be vigilant." Just as Donovan concluded, a waitress approached to refill their coffees. He smiled politely, waiting for her to move out of earshot before continuing. "I can't share every detail, but Martin's finances are under review by some federal authorities. They worry he may be implicated in new schemes." Clara's breath caught. Are you investigating him?" Donovan grimaced. "Not me personally, but yes, he's being scrutinized. If they find proof of wrongdoing, I can't protect him. Or you." A jolt of dread shot through her. Was Martin innocent, or had desperation led him back into shady dealings? Donovan's statement unleashed a torrent of anxieties in Clara's heart. Had Martin's fear of vengeance driven him to cross moral boundaries for money and power? She left the cafe with her head spinning, uncertain of how to confront her husband about the damning possibility that he was the subject of a federal investigation. That night, Martin noticed Clara's restless worry. He found her pacing in the living room, half-formed questions swirling in her mind. With a trembling hand, she finally pointed at him. "Tell me if the FBI is investigating you for new crimes." Martin froze. His response came slowly, warily. "I've done nothing illegal, Clara, but the FBI has questioned me, yes. They suspect that some of my business rivals might be using my companies to funnel money illegally. I'm cooperating." She pressed a hand to her forehead. "Why keep it a secret? Why not trust me with this from the start?" His gaze flickered with guilt. "I wanted to protect you, protect our baby from the stress, from the danger. And, truthfully, I was ashamed to admit I'm once again under suspicion. I feared you'd hate me for being tangled in a murky past. I vowed to leave behind Tears welled in Clara's eyes. Even as she listened, Clara couldn't help recalling the months of unexplained absences, suspicious calls, and half-truths. If Martin was truly innocent, why the deep secrecy, the desperation in his eyes whenever his phone buzzed? Her faith in him wavered like a flickering candle in a drafty room. The stress took a toll on her pregnancy. A week later, she was forced to see Dr. Fitzgerald again after experiencing pains and dizziness. Tests revealed elevated blood pressure, which the doctor attributed to anxiety. Martin stayed by her side that day, anxious to prove his devotion. But that very night, Clara heard him making another urgent call. This time, in the hush of their bedroom corridor, she caught only fragments, more funds, hush money, no choice. A sick realization sank in. Were criminals blackmailing him? Or was Martin paying hush money to keep his own wrongdoing concealed? Faced with mounting fear, Clara decided to take drastic action. She privately hired a lawyer, Miss Genevieve Price, who specialized in corporate law. Miss Price was sharp-eyed and thorough. Over coffee in the lawyer's glass-walled office, Clara divulged the entire situation, her husband's past, the FBI's renewed interest, and her suspicions of hush money. Miss Price studied her carefully. "You're seeking protection, Miss Hastings. You want to ensure your child's future isn't jeopardized by any allegations against your husband." Clara nodded, tears threatening to spill. "I love him, but I need to be safe. I need the truth." Miss Price promised to investigate Martin's holdings and trace any suspicious transactions. While Clara hated to pry behind Martin's back, she saw no alternative. Fear gnawed at her daily, her once peaceful home life spiraling into a labyrinth of secrets and tense whispers. A bombshell dropped 3 days later when Miss Price called her in a flurry of excitement and concern. Clara rushed to the law office, dread mounting. In a hushed tone, Miss Price explained what she'd uncovered. "Your husband has been making regular wire transfers to an account tied to an alias. The total sums are well into 6 figures, some of which pays Mara's hospital bills. But there's more going elsewhere." Clara's throat constricted. "Who does the other money go to?" Miss Price grimaced. "That's unclear, but it's connected to a shell corporation with ties to former associates of that criminal ring. It appears Martin might be secretly paying them off." All color drained from Clara's face. Was Martin actively funding criminals to keep them at bay? Or was he forced to pay for his own safety and that of his family? Either way, it was a staggering betrayal. Shaken, Clara confronted Martin that evening. She brandished the printouts Miss Price had given her. Her voice quivered with anger and fear. "You're paying a shell corporation tied to criminals. Are you out of your mind?" He stared at the documents, his composure cracking like thin ice. "I can explain," he rasped, voice laden with defeat. "They threatened to harm you and our baby." I had no choice. Trembling tears slipped down Clara's face. "So instead of involving the proper authorities, you're fueling their operations." His eyes welled, and she saw genuine torment. "Every time I tried to break free, they made it clear they could strike. Donovan's superiors can't confirm the ring is fully dismantled. If I don't pay, these people might come after you, or Donovan's family. This is bigger than me, Clara. I'm trapped." An angry storm of heartbreak swirled inside Clara. She felt both pity and rage. The confrontation sparked a chain reaction that led to the story's climactic moment of reckoning. Donovan discovered Martin's payments to the criminal group and confronted him. Furious that Martin refused to trust the FBI to protect him, Donovan threatened to turn Martin in. Soon, federal agents swarmed Martin's office. Investigations ramped up. Clara found herself at the center of a swirling storm. On one side, a devoted husband cornered by extortionists. On the other, a government agency demanding justice. In a heart-stopping twist, the criminals themselves made a brazen move. They approached Clara, directly calling her personal phone to threaten her if Martin stopped the payments. Clara went pale with terror but mustered remarkable courage, recording the conversation in secret. That recording became the key piece of evidence that Donovan needed to arrest the extortionists, once and for all. When the dust settled, Martin stood indicted but for lesser charges. He had cooperated at the final hour. In the aftermath, Donovan honored the loyalty Martin had shown his wife by testifying that Martin's fear and coerced payments helped the FBI locate the hidden members of the ring. Thanks to Clara's recorded evidence, the criminals were finally brought down. The scheme unraveled in a dramatic, widely televised sting operation. After weeks of legal wrangling, Martin received a suspended sentence for failing to report the extortion immediately, as well as a fine for attempting to conceal funds. Yet, his willingness to work with federal agents weighed in his favor. The essential piece of karmic retribution came in how the scandal tarnished Martin's once pristine reputation in the tech world. Investors pulled out, stocks plummeted, and his fortune took a precipitous dive. He learned, in the harshest way possible, that secrets and misguided choices ultimately extract a steep price even for millionaires. Clara, however, emerged with newfound strength. The ordeal had tested her marriage to its limits. For days, she wrestled with whether to stay or leave. Memories of Martin's caring side of him pacing hospitals and paying Mara's bills out of gratitude flashed against the backdrop of betrayal and secrets. In the end, she made a choice for her child. Clara told Martin she would stand by him if he pledged total honesty. He vowed to rebuild his empire on an ethical foundation, free of shadows. With Donovan's backing and Miss Price's legal counsel, Martin started over, forging a smaller company with strict transparency. Still pregnant, Clara moved forward cautiously. The heartbreak had not vanished, nor had the scars. But there was a fragile hope glimmering amid the debris. Their child would not inherit fear. Instead, that little one would someday hear the cautionary tale of how secrecy can nearly destroy what truly matters. Martin's final act of restitution was perhaps the most symbolic. With finances severely impacted, he sold their sprawling mansion and numerous luxury cars, downsizing to a modest home. The once arrogant millionaire personally arranged every detail, refusing to allow staff to handle it. He insisted on forging a new life with Clara, one not haunted by the shadows of easy money and hidden deals. At last, with Donovan's help, the criminals were definitively prosecuted, and Mara continued her treatments with improved peace of mind. As for Clara, she delivered a healthy baby boy 2 months later, tears of relief mingling with the memory of how close danger had crept. She named him Felix, signifying the luck and hope that had ultimately guided them through. That day, under the bright hospital lights, Martin cradled his newborn son, tears streaming down his cheeks, silently promising never to make the same mistake again. In the quiet postpartum days, Clara reflected on the events that led her to that new chapter. The karmic retribution had come full circle. Martin's illusions of grandeur and secrecy had nearly cost him his freedom and tore at the fabric of their family. Yet, it had also been the impetus for a painful but necessary transformation, forging a more honest future. Still, Clara remained watchful, alert to the possibility of new threats. She enrolled Felix in a daycare with excellent security, sought therapy to cope with her lingering anxiety, and encouraged Martin to attend counseling sessions to address his guilt and the fear he had carried for so long. Their road ahead was not guaranteed smooth. But if there was one lesson Clara took to heart, it was that shining light on truth, no matter how painful, was better than living with illusions that corroded trust from the inside out. Months later, Donovan and Mara dropped by their new home with a bundle of flowers and a colorful gift bag for Felix. Mara's eyes sparkled with renewed health. It moved Clara to see how far they'd all come. Over coffee in the smaller, cozier kitchen, Donovan revealed the criminals were officially sentenced. Justice had been served, thanks to Martin's final cooperation and Clara's bravery in recording that damning phone call. Mara smiled at the baby, reaching a gentle hand to stroke Felix's tiny fist. "This little one will grow up safe," she said softly. Martin watched from the corner, shoulders visibly lighter. He offered Donovan a grateful handshake. "I'm sorry I shut you out," Martin murmured. "I should have trusted you and Clara from the start." Donovan patted Martin's shoulder. "We all learn the hard way sometimes. Let's hope the future sees fewer secrets and more open doors." Late that evening, after Donovan and Mara left, Clara and Martin stood on their modest patio, a baby monitor clipped to Clara's waist. The autumn sky shimmered above them. A brisk breeze carried the scent of fallen leaves. For a moment, they were silent, reflecting on the incredible journey that had led them here. Despite losing a fortune, Martin showed no regret at living more simply. In fact, he expressed relief at having unburdened himself from the constant fear of scandal and blackmail. He turned to Clara, eyes full of sincerity. "I may have less money now, but I've regained my soul, and I still have you and Felix. I won't let anything endanger that again." Clara placed a hand on his shoulder, gazing into his eyes. Though it would take time to heal entirely, she believed him. A second chance was all she had ever hoped for. In a poetic twist, Martin's story became a cautionary tale in business circles. The once lauded genius who soared to millionaire status before 35 had stumbled from grace, paying the price for past entanglements. But ironically, his moral comeback story garnered a different kind of respect among those who valued integrity. A handful of ethical investors approached him, intrigued by his pledge to make amends. With Miss Price's help, Martin secured funding for a small startup focusing on secure, transparent financial software dedicated to preventing laundering or shady transactions. The press considered it ironic that he was determined to combat the very crimes he had once unwittingly abetted. Yet for Martin, it was an earnest chance at redemption. In the quiet lull of midnight feeds and early morning diaper changes, Clara sometimes glimpsed a spark of that old determination in Martin's eyes. But now, it was tempered by humility and gratitude. Looking back, it was astonishing how one day at the doctor's office unraveled so many secrets. In that moment, Clara's entire world had seemed to collapse around her, discovering Martin was paying bills for an FBI agent's wife. But from that storm of deception and anxiety emerged a deeper truth, a chance for Martin to confront his demons and for Clara to stand up for herself and her child. They still visited Dr. Fitzgerald for postpartum checkups, exchanging polite smiles that held unspoken memories of the day the illusions began to crack. As the weeks turned to months, Clara often found herself repeating silent prayers of thanks that her baby had been spared any harm from the stress. Though a pang of lingering hurt sometimes surfaced, Clara recognized that real healing isn't instantaneous. Like the slow and steady growth of her newborn, trust was something to be nurtured day by day. Karmic retribution had arrived in full measure for those who once threatened Martin and Clara, just as it had for Martin himself. But in a way, it set everyone on a path to become better people. Donovan, initially mistrusting Martin, learned that fear can corrode even the best of friendships. That forced him to open up more about the protective resources the FBI offered. Mara, once so vulnerable, found the strength to endure her medical journey. She channeled her experience into helping others navigate the uncertainties of illness. Clara, though wounded, tapped into a wellspring of courage she never knew she had. And Martin, once blinded by wealth, found clarity in realizing that the most valuable thing he possessed was his family. In the end, none of them emerged unscathed, but each discovered new resolve and gratitude in the process of rebuilding their lives upon truth. As the seasons passed, Clara frequently thought back to the chance discovery that changed everything. The day she witnessed Martin's secret financial arrangement with Agent Donovan's wife in those hospital corridors had seemed like the worst moment of her life. But ironically, it became the catalyst for a necessary purge of darkness. Though it brought heartbreak and stress, it also cleansed the hidden rot in Martin's world. Now, in their smaller home, photos of Felix lined the fireplace mantel, an ordinary domestic scene that once seemed unimaginable in the palatial mansion of old. That night, as Clara rocked Felix to sleep, she hummed a lullaby. She realized that while money and illusions can vanish, the resilience of love and hope can remain. In that realization lay the true triumph, the real karmic retribution. They had all faced consequences, yet gleaned from them the deeper worth of honesty, courage, and unity. Thank you for joining us on this dramatic and suspenseful journey. We witnessed Clara's world crumble at a routine doctor's visit, only to see her rise stronger than ever. The truth unraveled in shocking twists that no one could have foreseen. Ultimately, the storm of hidden deals, extortion, and FBI intrigue delivered a powerful lesson that honor, love, and resilience transcend even the deepest betrayals. If you enjoyed this storytelling experience, please remember to like the video, share it with friends who enjoy pulse-pounding drama, and subscribe to the channel for more stories full of intrigue and redemption. Your support means everything, and we look forward to captivating you again soon.